winding lanes and hamlets of black and white houses in the Severn and Avon valleys. And if you want the wide open spaces, what can beat the views from the Malvern or from Breeden Hill? Have you walked along the Malverns or climbed out of the Avon Valley onto Breeden? Until you have, I'll not hear a word against the Midlands. Not a word. For there you have England, the real England, Shakespeare's England. In fact, I hold that all these other places I've heard you extol are merely the setting for this central gem. Any objections?
Here. I quite agree with you. But I vote for the Cotswolds. Nothing mellows quite so wonderfully as Cotswold stone. And there's really no place like the Cotswolds for byway motoring. Nothing devastating, mind you, but always something of interest. Something perfectly lovely in a quiet sort of way. Never a dreary mile, but always, unexpectedly, round that innocent-looking corner, a most trim little village of clustering stone houses, with the smoke curling up from the chimney tops, blue against the banks of foliage. And when you think you know the Cotswolds, you can start all over again, finding new villages and new views you never dreamt existed before. Of course, I know those other places you're all so enthusiastic about are all very fine in their way, and I realize we all have our own tastes. But I'm never so happy as when I have a day or two to spare and can spend it touring in the Cotswold country.
Ever been to Yorkshire, any of you? Aye. Ever heard of Ripon, Fountains Abbey, Wensleydale and Richmond? I warrant you think of nothing but Sheffield, Leeds, Bradford, Huddersfield, Halifax and manufacturing when Yorkshire is mentioned. Yet I'm willing to wager that Yorkshire can give you the gradeliest scenery that you've ever known. Why, it's bigger than Wales, so it ought to be worth exploring. Mind you, you'll want a really good car for Yorkshire, because the hills are something terrific. You may be motoring along a quiet valley, and suddenly the road will whip up onto the moors, away from everything except the sheep and birds. And then, neatly tucked away in a hollow, you may run across an old abbey ruin, taking you back to days long before motor cars were ever dreamt of. Give me a fortnight's freedom, a map of Yorkshire, and just you see if I don't come back with just as much to talk about as any of you.
What is all this fuss about? How can anyone read at all with all your chattering? You want to know which is the best bit of England? I'll tell you. You each of you think your own choice marvellous. Marvellous. Now just listen. What can equal the New Forest on the Hampshire coast? Answer me that. When I run down to Bournemouth, I always make a point of spending some of my time in the New Forest, ambling around, so to speak. A real bit of old England, I call it, with thatched cottages and wooded glades. And the ponies, why, it's wild country, where you can be right away from everyone, yet with the next village hiding just around the corner. You can go down to the sea, where the tide gently ripples up the Solent with the world's greatest liners gliding proudly by. One can't keep away from the sea in England. But after all, what are we disputing about? If you travel in a happy frame of mind, and the weather is reasonably kind, you will find that this little island of ours can be beautiful wherever you go. Get a good car. That's the secret of it. Now, mine's an Austin.
And mine.
And mine.
And mine. You buy a car, but we invest in an Austin.
So you've been reading the advertisement?
No, my dear Watson. If you look out of the window, the mystery will be explained.
Huh? Well, I'm blessed. Practically all of them are Austins. Everybody seems to be investing in an Austin these days, and I'm sure they can't do better.